All right, good morning, everybody. How are you this morning? I will hope my voice lasts 30 minutes, so we'll see how long we can go. But I'll try and talk as loud as I can. But I may start squeaking a little bit. So if I do, there's no amp to adjust or anything like that. We'll just suffer through it together. So I wanted to take a little bit of time this morning in the morning chat to go over what we discussed at board agenda, our board agenda items, and that conversation there. Update on action plans, some of the other things that we have going on, and then open it up for questions. So we'll go ahead and jump right in and get started. And one of the main reasons we moved the chats to be right after the board meeting is so that we could close the gap a little bit on some of the conversations that may have came up at board meeting, so that if you're asked about it or information as it goes out to the field, that you're aware of it. So hopefully this will kind of help that. We'll evaluate it and see if we need to do it a little bit different. But at the board meeting, the main part where we talk about what's going on at the agency is when we get into the director's comments. And in that piece, I just kind of wanted to go over the parts that we discussed. We did have our 2 board members was in weekly communication. In that, Tim Berg will be back on our board for a full term. And then David Stewart, who was appointed to fill Carl Meyer's place, he is appointed and Senate confirmed to finish out that term. So we did have 2 of those for our board. So yay, we're back to a full board. Makes it great when you're getting a quorum. So we're very thankful for that. The next part that we talked about a little bit, cooperative alliances. We've been working on, and many of you have been working on cooperative alliances for over 2 years to align with the new recommendations from the Higher Learning Commission, which basically makes it look a little bit different for counting for cooperative alliance. We were in a meeting Tuesday and with HLC on a conference call, regents, technology centers, and with the Higher Learning Commission on the conference call, they had mentioned there is another option of transfer credit that may count when we're talking about taking credits from Technology Center to a higher education institution. Okay, everybody was paying attention, listening. When they heard that, they're like, what? That was new information. So to confirm that information, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, HLC, the Regents is going to request for them to put that in writing, since we heard it on the conference call. Get that back to us and the Regents, and then the Regents will work to align their policy that they adopted in January, take that back to the Regents. So once we get that in writing and it's confirmed, then that can be put into the Regents policy. So it does open up another option for cooperative alliances. But the first thing that has to happen is they have to get that in writing from Higher Learning Commission, and then the Regents, they're just as excited as what the technology centers were to open that option up for our students. So that's where we're at on cooperative alliances. That just happened on Tuesday. So we're hopeful. And HLC is closed until Tuesday because of a conference. So they called them that afternoon, but they indicated that they were closing that afternoon until Tuesday. So hopefully by the end of this week, first part of next week, we'll know. As soon as we know and how that's outlined, I'll make sure that I put it in the weekly communication so that you guys will know and know potentially where that might impact various things. Also on the cooperative alliances in our advanced medical areas, we have some programs that are working on contracts or prior learning assessments. That is moving forward, and most of them have worked that out so that the students in those areas can still be served, and they're working through those contracts. So hopefully we're on the right track and be able to continue to serve students in all those areas. Everybody should already have their calendar marked. I know Suzanne sent out a reminder this morning already. Tomorrow from 9 to noon, make sure that you make time sometime during that time period to go out to the print plant and see all the things that we're doing. Many of the action plans that we have outlined, that we've had outlined for over a 12-month period. We'll demo some of those, show you what they're all about. So please, if you can, just take an opportunity. You don't have to stay the whole 9 to 12, but go out, have a snack, take a tour, see all the great things that they've been working on. First Robotics, First Robotics was last week, and Friday I had the opportunity to go to First Robotics and chat with the students and get a button. So they pass out a button from all the different areas when they're there from the different states. So we gave the board members a First Robotics button. So they were pretty excited about that. Superintendent Hoffmeister, when she was presenting to the group, she indicated that we had given her a button, that the Career Tech had already provided her with an Oklahoma button. So then everybody else wanted to know why we hadn't given them one. So we shared buttons. It was good. But it was First Robotics. We will have a link in the weekly communication of the results of that. So as you get results, and the reason I wanted to make sure I put this up here, if you have results from your CTSOs or your competitive events, anything like that, and there's a link, if you want that included in the weekly communication, please let me know. I'll put it under useful links so that everybody knows all of the different things that our student organizations do. And when I know this is CTSO season, a lot of different things going on. A special thank you to all of you. I know many of you may not work in one specific area, but if there's a team that needs help, you guys step up and help each other out, whether it's helping load a vehicle out front so they can head out with a van, or if you're helping them do registration, that is greatly appreciated. And I know many of you, whether it's scoring, anything along that line, many of you have stepped up and helped that, and that is greatly appreciated. But send me your links. If you have results that you would like shared out, I'd love to put those out there. Wednesday, Hall of Fame, and I have sent out a little bit of this in the weekly memo, but Hall of Fame will be in October. It will be at Francis Tuttle Technology Center. But if you have someone who meets Hall of Fame, has been an outstanding individual for career and technology education, educator, administrator, any piece, and you would like to nominate them for the Hall of Fame, those are due by April 1st. So make sure you get those in. The accreditation process, the pilot accreditation, I did bring that back up to the board to talk to them as we go through. The pilot schools that went through the accreditation process, their accreditations will go to the board in June. That's our goal. No, they will. They'll go to the board in June. In June, it's going to be a different format than the board has seen in the past. So starting in April, we're going to use April and May to kind of give them an outline of this is what's included in an assessment, this is how they're evaluated, here's potentially what the results will look like, and those type of things, so that when it comes to June and we lay 6 brand new accreditation applications down, that they have an idea of what that means, what the schools went through, and the outline for that. So they'll be starting on that in April. And then also for us here at the agency, since we are doing our assessment in the small group meetings that we have, administrative assistants meeting, managers meeting, big group meeting, we'll go over some of that because we'll have a little bit more time. So you can understand too, when we get our assessment results back, you'll know what that means, and you'll know what the process that we went through to get that list of our strengths, weaknesses, potential things that we need to work on. So that's coming later on in April. So we'll all have that as well. We went through, the pit crew finished in February with the accreditation training. And so now we'll get to see, after they go through that whole assessment, how do you unwrap the results that you get. So that'll be a conversation that we start having. At the National Directors Conference, which is next week, I get the opportunity to moderate 2 topics, and many of the examples and things that we do here in Oklahoma, they've asked us to bring those to the table. One of them I get to moderate on one day is teacher certification, and the next day is on business and industry engagement. So that kind of went over that with the board a little bit to let them know where Oklahoma, we get to be a part of that conversation. And then we also we've had CTSOs Starting back in October, we had CTSOs at the board meeting. This time we had Garrett Reed from Locust Grove FFA, who is current FFA president, state FFA president. He spoke to the board on FFA and thanked them for supporting all of career and technology education. So that was the basic brief that we gave. And then legislative update. We do have a few things. We've covered our legislative update with the board. We have one of the areas that we covered, and here's just a list of a few of them. There are others that we're watching, but as far as direct impact to the work that we do or direct impact on our daily operations, they're ones that we're just watching to see how they go in conversation. They haven't been to the floor, they're still to committee. But here are a few. One of the ones that was of concern for us is Senate Bill 308. Our administrative rules that we just, our 3 chapters that we submitted, there was a legislative request in there that legislators could make amendments at any time in the rule process. It failed in committee. It did go through one house, but it did fail in committee. And the concern here is our rules would be in perpetual motion. There would not ever be a finite time that they would be set. And potentially good intentions of putting some information in there may have unintended consequences in one of our other rules because they are substantially big. So those were some of our concerns, and when we had the opportunity to have a conversation about that, it made sense. And so that one did fail in committee, but it can potentially come back next cycle, but it currently has failed in committee. One of the other ones, and there was an article in the Journal Record on Senate Bill 95. This is legislation that actually went into place in 2013, and it defined technology centers as state agencies. So basically what this will do is it specifies that technology centers are not state agencies, so that they are encouraged to participate in energy conservation, but that they are not state agencies and have to follow the exact guidelines that we follow. Like Donna has been working on our E2020 reports and going through that process. That's because we're a state agency that we do that. So that's clarifying language. It's going through the process. It is in House committee, hopefully go to House floor in the next week or so. We've talked about this one before, the high school diploma, changing the terminology GED to high school diploma equivalency, which will allow for us to offer multiple testing options instead of just one. It gives great opportunity for individuals. It doesn't exclude any testing option that we currently have. It opens the door for 2 more. So we'd actually have the availability of 3 in our state. And there are 4 other states who do this. We would like to be the 5th so that we can open that door. It has went through well. It passed Senate committee last week, and it's hopefully headed to the Senate floor this week as soon as it gets on the agenda. And then House Bill 1321, one of the areas here, this is in high school graduation, if you have to get specific things, we had like work keys for EOIs and different things like this. Representative Nolan has added a section in there if certain industry credentials that we recommend from the State Department of Career Tech, if approved by the State Department of Education, could count towards high school graduation. So that language was not in there, but this would be a potential addition to that. And that bill is moving on through. The title has been struck, so it does have a few more steps to go through. But it does add language in there that would allow for the training that we do in career and technology education to count for high school graduation in specific areas that we identify. And then the State Department of Education approves. So one of the other bills that we're watching, and this one has actually went to House committee, is Senate Bill 346, and this is specific to us here at the agency. Right now we're watching this one. There's much conversation, and we are at the table on this conversation, but primarily what it is any MOU that we have here, it would need to be published out for access 15 days after completion of the MOU, which we have open records, so we have our information's available anyway. This just kind of puts it into a specific process. So we're working through this one to verify what the language is, how big that scope is, and how that outlined. But that is one that would be specific for us here at the agency. So Julie, that one would be, yeah. You may want to take a chance to look at that one. We've outlined it and are having conversation with them, but it would be something we already have. We'd have to put it out on a site and upload it. So that's what those are. Those are the primary ones that the board had questions on. Those were the ones that we addressed. There are approximately 15 that we're still watching, but those are the ones that would directly impact work that we do here. The other ones are more specific on funding for ad valorem, which would impact local rural areas or urban areas, depending on that type of information. But those are the specific ones that we discussed. And then the big one that we talked about and that we all should be very aware about is the appropriations piece. And to kind of give you an idea on the appropriations piece, top 12 agencies for appropriations. We did hit the top 12. We're number 8 with our 1.9% that we are of the state budget. That makes us number 8. Now, I want to clarify, in the top 12, this is only when you consider the money that can be appropriated, below the line money. If we added in the top above the line that's a specific direct funding to specific agencies, we would fall off of the top 12. But the request right now is just on, we get to go back to the Senate and have a re-Senate hearing. We did a re-House hearing, which I mentioned in last month's chat. In the middle of April, we'll get to go back before the House and redo our appropriation, have more conversation about our appropriations. And the reason we go back because we are in the top 12. Our 1.9% right there, that's our 138 million. That's what puts us where we're at. And here's the breakdown of what that looks like. Our state appropriations, the 135 million that we have, when you look at that, when they talk about our state appropriations, they add together the lottery. So if they do any percentage cut, they will add the 135 million to the 3.8. But the 3.8 can't be touched because it is specific for lottery, but it's in the initial calculation. So in that, if you look out of our state appropriations, just to kind of give you an idea, when we talk about where's all your money go, and if you were going to make cuts or percentages, 85% of our state appropriations is passed through. It goes to the classrooms, in comprehensive schools, and technology centers. 85% of that. So if you're talking making a cut, us at the agency, it's only 11.8%. So we'll all have to share in that. I mean, there's not, you can't take a substantial hit on a small percentage area and be able to make up very much dollar amount. So that's why I make sure that everyone is aware that out of that 138 million that we get, that goes out, the majority of that goes out to the schools and the classrooms and the teachers. So our revolving fund, in conversation with what I mentioned last month in the revolving fund, when we went back in for the House conversation on our budget, they want to know how much of our revolving fund was not committed to something. And so Lisa and her team went through that. Currently, out of that $3 million, about $140,000 is the part that's not committed to either a contract, a commitment that we've made for a specific project, anything along that line. It's about $140,000. So that doesn't get you much there. And then, of course, our federal, that's the federal dollar amount that we have there. When we go back, when we went to the House, we did a 2%, a 5.5%, and a 7%. That was what we were to project and kind of give an idea what that would do. Senate, we're to look at a 2% and a 4%. For us, just to give you an idea, a 2% cut for career tech, it's about 2.7 million, and then a 4%, you're right, about 5.5 million cut. So when you look at across there, it doesn't sound like a lot of money to some of the agencies, but when 85% of ours is passed through, everybody would feel that. There's not a absorbing piece there for it. So just to, not to be gloom and doom, I just want everyone to be aware of where we're at, what we're being asked to do. Of course, we'll prepare for the worst and hope for the best and see how we come out. It's not the end of May yet, so we'll know where we're at. But I also want to be really upfront and let everybody know these are some things that we're looking at, and these are the questions that we're being asked by the legislators so that they can get their mind around the budgeting, because I am guessing if they got to vote today, they wouldn't want to have to be figuring out the $611 million hole either. They would prefer to be on the other side of that, just like everybody else would. So we're trying to make sure that we provide accurate information so that they can see the actual impact and where the money goes that goes to career and technology education. So any specific questions on this budget piece? All of you probably are very familiar with this, so I just want to make sure you had an opportunity to have a conversation. Marie.
Okay, so when they talk about the available money in revolving for all state agencies, like a dollar amount, so are they talking about just the full amount, like ours would be $3 million, or it would be, or is it the 140,000, the amount that's not committed?
In the Marie's question is on the revolving. Are they talking about like the $3 million for everybody, or what's available that they could potentially bring back and reappropriate? In the original conversation and in all of the conversations, it has been about the piece that's not committed that they could potentially bring back and reappropriate in other ways or to other state agencies. So for us, that'd be the 140,000 that I talked about. That's the only piece in the specific line item that we have that is not already committed in our operations that we do here at the agency and with outside vendors. Is that answer? Other questions on appropriations or concerns or questions you've been asked that it'd be nice if we covered that so everybody. Tina.
Do other agencies break it down like you have here on how much is really passed through and how much it is to sustain the agency?
Tina's question is, do other agencies break it down how we have here, what's passed through, what's actually our operations? Some of them do. Some of them, I'm not sure what specific area, how they break theirs down. The intent for this is so that in that cut, it's not for administrative cost or things like that. We're pretty lean. When you look, and that's one of the things that we want to make sure that we illustrate is that we are, as far as our administrative costs, we're lean in that, and that we make sure that the money is sent out to frontline individuals. So that some of them some of them it's a very detailed, they break it down in various areas. So, but that was kind of the intent for why we chose to do this. Okay. And also our skill centers piece, the 3.2%, that is a part of agency. However, when you talk about impact to students and classrooms and things, wanted to make sure that that was broken out so that they could see the education piece of that. Other questions on appropriations? We're working through it. We'll get there. As we address things or as we're asked questions, that's one of the things I want to make sure that you guys are very much aware of the conversation that's going on. And as if anything new comes about, we'll make sure that you're aware of that conversation so that there aren't any surprises, and that everybody knows what we're looking at. So if you get questions and you're not sure, or it may be new information, please ask, or give me a shout and say, hey, are we really doing this? Because you may be in various meetings where they have a conversation about, we're doing across the board cut for, I had a call the other day. I was in a meeting, they're doing across the board cut for all agencies at 12%. Okay, that is one of the conversations, but know that we have not, that has not been put in writing or put out there, but that is one of the things they're trying to figure out what to do. So, and we're going to help them by giving them all the information of what we do here at the agency. So, a couple other things on the board agenda. We did have two other action items on the board agenda. One was the de-annexation from Millwood Public Schools from Francis Tuttle, just the call of the election. Tentatively, the election will be on June the 9th. And then we did have 3 chapters of rules submitted. We had those published on the website. We had 1 comment sent in for clarifying language on one of the chapters, presented that to the board. They recommended that we update that piece, and then all 3 of our rule sections did pass in all of our chapters. So those were the other items on the board agenda. A couple other quick things. We do have state staff meeting. Thank you to everybody who did their survey. Appreciate that. The winning date was June the 1st, and we are going to do it from 10 to 3. We're working on the agenda. Senior leadership will be responsible for putting that together, scheduling, and as soon as we have some of those details, we'll get those out to you. But on your calendars, if you want to mark down June 1st from 10 to 3 at Meridian Technology Center, that's where we'll be. So that part we do have outlined. And then a lot of the information that you provided, your comments or things that you wanted to learn about, there were a lot of different things on there. We're going to take some of the majority of the elements and have those at state staff. But some of your other recommendations that you provided, we're going to try and see how we can incorporate them throughout the year in a professional development plan, because there were a lot of little interesting pieces, maybe not enough for everybody to come into, but we'll try and put that list together so that we make sure that we can get those professional development opportunities out to you. Follow up on the action plans. Update on action plans was a question that I received in the business plan. We're still working on those action plans. Everybody's like, what are we working on? It's the same ones on page 12 at the top that we have. The one that I can probably guarantee will have to be reevaluated and moved to the next year is the performance funding implementation. That was based on our $36 million legislative ask. So potentially that one will be pushed unless something happens and we receive money. Career development establishment, the demo of that and information will be at the digital open house. Information management system upgrade, gave you a brief update in the weekly communication last week on where we're at. July 1 target for the first round, and then we'll have more pieces to come to that. Accreditation, we finished the training process. As we move through that, the first cycle for the accreditation, it's still in pilot stage. That'll go to the board in June. Cooperative alliances, gave that update. Workforce engagement, that's our PD part, our professional development that we're working on across all entities. Teacher certification. Teacher certification, there is a team that's been working on that diligently to outline what our requirements are for teacher certification. Are there some ways that we can update that? Are there ways that we could work together? So that one is still in full swing. And then the print plant redesign, those are all the ones for FY15. You'll get to see that tomorrow out at the print plant. So you can see a live in-person update of that action plan. And then there are also, don't forget out on the internal website, all of the action plans that people have brought to the table and working through, those are put on there. Okay, I know the Excel spreadsheet kind of when you do it in a PDF, the lines are off a little bit. So if it looks like those two don't go together, it's probably because the line's off. So see what's above it or below it and see if the line's better. But one of the action plans that we're working on to help with that is to have a better tool so that you guys can go out and see the action plans, and it's a little bit easier to read than the PDF spreadsheet that we have up there. I know that that spreadsheet that's up there is not the ideal way for you to see the action plans, but we're trying to find a cost-effective and user-friendly way that we can, you guys can have access to those action plans. So that's one of those work in process pieces. So hopefully we'll have that before too long, but we do want to make sure it's a cost-effective solution, and then you may be able to use it for other things as well besides just action plans. So it's kind of a project management piece. What questions do you have for me? Alice.
I'm thinking back to the budget, and I don't know if this will work or not, but over the last 10 years, we've taken a lot of hits. And I'm not sure, but I think on some of those, the agency has absorbed them more than the field has. And so I was wondering if you did a chart of the last 10 years to show what those hits were.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Alice's question is, have we looked at past years, what the charts look like for when we have taken appropriations, decreases or different cuts at agency, different areas like that? And absolutely. In some of the areas we've looked at 7-year trends, some of the areas we went to 10-year trends, and not only the agency piece, but also flex benefit allowance, which we send out to the schools, but the schools have had to absorb. And just in the last 2 years, that's $13 million that the technology centers have absorbed. Not, we sent them what the amount was that we were given from the state, but they have locally, they have to make up that cost because of statutory requirement. So absolutely, we've done that. And just to look at the trend of agency FTE, the 7-year trend of that, like in FY09, just to give an example, we're at 329 average employees, and then FY15, about 245. So absolutely all of those pieces come into play as we go through that process to make sure that we can see what the trend line is, what the historical data, where that's at, and moving that forward. And where were potentially areas that were reduced, and moving that forward. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot when that 11.9%, that in other areas that I've looked at, that is a fairly low percentage for agency operations compared to maybe others. But I haven't done the comparison to compare it with other pieces, but we want to make sure that they know it actually is disseminated out. Good question. Other questions? Laura.
The bill where it was talking about administrative rules.
Yes.
Was that all state agencies that there?
Yes. Yes. Laura's question was on the administrative rules, was that all state agencies or just to specific state agencies? And it was across the board. Administrative rule making across the board. Yeah, good question. But it did not go past committee. So, other questions? And the crowd goes quiet. All right. Well, thank you for taking your time to come in and meet for a little bit this morning. We will continue this conversation. If you do have things that come up, please don't hesitate to send them my way on like your legislative questions, things that you have. Please don't hesitate to send those our way. Legislative session, we're getting to a close on that. As it comes, the bills that are in there right now, they have till April 9th, 10th to come out of committee of the opposite house. And then once they come out of committee, they have until April the 27th to actually go to the floor to take action upon. So as if you have questions, don't hesitate to send those forward. All right, no other questions. You guys have a great day. Thanks for being here.